Could you start out with your names and also just since this is, well, I kind of know your projects, but if you could start out with your names and then also the projects that we were just talking about that you've been working on.
You go first. Okay. I'm Jenny Asarno, and I live in Seattle. Okay. And I created a project for Maker's Quest 2.0, which was from the Association of Independents in Radio. And my project was called The Corner 23rd and Union, and it's an interactive, collaborative, multimedia storytelling project about a street corner in Seattle. And it was an opportunity for people in Seattle Central District neighborhood to talk about issues around race and class, or whatever they wanted to talk about, in a neighborhood that's the city's historically African-American neighborhood going through gentrification over the past decade. Okay. And so the way it actually worked is we created a huge public art installation on a vacant lot covering a city block, and that invited people to call a phone number where they could listen to people's stories and tell their own stories. And any story that someone told was automatically integrated. So it became an outgoing message that other people heard and popped up on our website. And yeah, that was good. Cool. I think that's it. Okay.
Yeah, could you say your name?
Sure. So I'm Kara Oler, and I created Mapping Main Street, which was funded by the same grant that Jenny was talking about, MQ2. And our project was conceived around the time of the election. So it was a time when there was a lot of political rhetoric about Main Street versus Wall Street. And just amongst my collaborators on the project, we started wondering, what on earth are they talking about when they're saying Main Street? And so to subvert that term a bit, we decided that we'd try and create a documentary where we had people from all over the United States help us to document all 10,466 streets that are named Main Street. And so we did that by having stories that went on NPR, and then from there, the host, Scott Simon, host of Weekend Edition Saturday, would say, you know, and to contribute to this project, you can document using Flickr or YouTube or Vimeo, and then if people just tag their photos or videos, they'll appear on our site automatically. And at this point we're getting, I bet today, I wouldn't be surprised if we just hit our 700th Main Street. We're really close. We get about 10 new ones a week, and right now it's being used by a lot of educators. So people anywhere from junior high students, I just gave a talk to 7th and 8th graders, to college teachers. The Annenberg schools used it. Duke Center for Documentary Studies uses it. Radio Rookies right now is doing a workshop. And it helps the students to interact with their communities, tell oral history projects, and then also learn about Creative Commons. So it's been a great teaching tool in that way.
Yeah, no, that's great. Actually, one of the reasons I felt like really drawn to your projects was, well, first of all, with The Corner, I had like this sort of automatic thought about the show The Corner.
Oh yeah. Totally.
So that's when I was like,
Wire.
oh yeah, The Wire, and just kind of like this kind of like pop culture familiarity that's also like very much connected to like real life. Like I'm, you know, because we always talk in my conversations with folks, I always talk about The Corner. You know, like we're always like, what, are we going to hang out in the corner, or what are those people doing in the corner? Like there's just like so many references to the corner, and how like in a lot of ways that's like a good symbol of you know, the point in which people interact with each other and intersect, even though they may never interact with each other outside of that street setting. And I just wanted to know like your thoughts about that, and you know, that.
I think that's really interesting. Like part of the reason I was interested in this particular corner is I live in the neighborhood, and it was a place where I felt like there was a huge disconnect between different groups of people, especially around race lines. Like for me, moving into the neighborhood a few years ago, I was told like, don't go there, it's like, don't go there at night, like it's not a good place to be, like that kind of a thing. But at the same time, I'd always see people hanging out there. And then when I started talking to more longtime residents of the corner, of the neighborhood, I just learned that like this has always for 60, 70 years been a hub where people congregated, and since it did used to be like an almost entirely African American neighborhood, it tends to be black people who still go there to hang out. But like newcomers to the neighborhood don't get that, like just don't know what's going on there, and part of that is because if you were like to actually look at the physical landscape today, the reasons why people originally started going there just really aren't there for the most part anymore. Like there used to be a ton of businesses, just markets and a bank and a roller skating rink and supermarkets and lawyers' offices, and those things just for the most part aren't there anymore. There's a lot of vacant lots, and there's like one barber shop and one restaurant, but like other than that it's pretty empty. So for a newcomer to the neighborhood, I just had a lot of questions of like, why do people want to be here when like I can't tell just looking at it why that is. So that's sort of what's piqued my curiosity to begin with, and it was just so like it was really profound, like learning about the connections people had to that physical space, even though the reasons, like the landmarks, weren't there anymore. But people still go there because that's just where a lot of people they know go. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And actually, one of the reasons I thought that the Main Street Project was so interesting was like the rhetoric around Main Street or like Middle America, in the United States political system, and especially like within like the kind of the Republican Democrat discourse around like who are the average Americans, and so I guess my question